So I recently saw this diagram that was like a triangle. I'll try and put it on the screen if I can work out how to do that. But it was like a triangle. You might have seen it. And in each corner, it had a different word. In one of them, it said social, like your social life. The other one, it said success, meaning work, goals. And the other one, it said sleep. And in the middle, it said you can choose two. It said choose two, pick two. It's this theory that's kind of suggesting that you can't have all three. You can't be well rested and sleeping enough, whilst also having a good social life, whilst also getting all the shit that you want to get done towards your goals or your work or your career or whatever the fuck you consider success. It's suggesting that humans don't have the capacity to prioritize all three of these things at once. You can pick two, and the other one is going to give. You're going to have to sacrifice one of these major things. And, they're all quite major areas of your life, sleeping and socializing and working. That's like pretty much all anyone fucking does. So I found it really interesting that, it's suggesting that you actually can't balance the three very easily, and that one will always have to give. And I found it really interesting because I'm someone who I've always found it quite difficult to balance shit in life. It's quite, I don't know, I feel like it's quite easy to get quite burnt out, trying to do everything at once. I've always found that quite tricky, like trying to just find a good, happy medium where I'm, getting a little bit of everything in my life. I'm someone who has sometimes found it easier to just go all or nothing, like be 100 or zero. Like if I need to get, if I need to work a lot, maybe I need to save for something or like that just needs to be my priority. I will just be like, right, I'm going to work intensely for the next month, probably not really see anyone. And, then I'll like have a social life, and I feel like a lot of us have that kind of thing where it's like, if you need to prioritize something, everything else is just like kind of out the window, which kind of proves the point of this theory that humans can't balance them all, Humans aren't very good at balancing all these three things. And in a way, this theory kind of comforted me and made me feel better because, like I said, I've been known to get burnt out trying to get enough sleep and look after myself, but also make sure I'm seeing friends, but also make sure that I'm working enough and I'm earning enough. And, there's a lot on everyone's plates. There's a lot of little things to tend to in your life. And, you don't want your relationships and your friendships to suffer, but you also need to sleep and look after yourself. But also, work takes up a fuck ton of everyone's days and lives. And it's just a lot, I don't know, I found it kind of comforting that there's a whole theory about this and that it's not just like something that, I find hard, something that I like just have an issue with. It's like actually maybe it's more of a capacity issue. Maybe it's just that people only have so much energy and only have so much that they can give. And, you know, you spread yourself too thin trying to do them all. And that would explain a lot as to why I go 0 to 100 and get burnt out. And I'm like, fuck, I haven't seen my boyfriend in a week, but I've been working loads, but I'm so tired. And then I'll like flip it and then I'll be like, fine, I'll see my boyfriend and I'll sleep enough. But then it's fuck, I haven't worked enough. Do you know what I mean? I think this theory makes me feel a lot more like, oh, that it's a thing. It's not just like I have a balance issue that is like personal to me. Maybe I do, but I don't know. I just found this really interesting and I kind of wanted to discuss my experiences with it and also like the validity of the theory and like I wanted to get other people's thoughts, Please do comment if this resonates with you, if you think this theory is like, oh, that explains a lot, or if you're like, I don't really take issue with that. And in that case, honestly, well done. Um, give me advice. So something that I found interesting about this triangle, about this theory, is that it suggests that we live in cycles. It suggests that we fluctuate and kind of oscillate between cycles in our lives. And that is something that like I massively resonate with. I very much see my life in chapters and in phases. And I think this theory supports that. Do you know what I mean? I feel like I'm giving a fucking like English essay exam. I feel like I'm doing my GCSEs or something. But I think something that this theory, it's suggesting that, pick two. You have to, in this phase of your life, in this chapter, pick what you're going to benefit from the most and let what isn't a priority right now in your life give. Let that be pushed to the side for a minute. And then at some point, you will fluctuate back into maybe that thing that you pushed to the side needing to be more in the forefront, and you'll drop something else. Do you know what I mean? I find it interesting that it's like, pushing the idea that we don't always need the same things, that we do go through cycles and we do oscillate between this needs to be more important to me, or I'm feeling really social at the moment and that's feeling really good to me, or I kind of just want to be in my own bubble and go to work and like sleep. And, that's kind of the vibe that I'm in right now. I like that it, is supporting the fact that we change, like, because we do. And I've always been very big on the fact that, like I said, I very much go through phases, and sometimes I don't give a fuck about like social life. I'm not like, I'm obviously, if you've listened to this before, I'm not the most social butterfly. Like, I'm quite the introvert. But like I said, I go through phases, and sometimes I just don't really give a fuck about seeing people as much. It's like I want to see people, but it's by no means like top of my list priority. Um, and I may be more inclined to, work really hard on this podcast or other goals that I have. Maybe it's not necessarily work, but it's like I want to improve in different things, and I want to, do a running program, and I want to learn how to cook this, and I want, sometimes I'm like, that seems more fun to me than going out and seeing people. But then give it a month and I'm probably like, fuck that, I want to see my friends. And like, I don't know, it's always something that I have felt I very much change what I need. And I don't really know what, like, why that is. I don't really know what changes to change my needs in that moment, if you know what I mean. But I kind of don't give a fuck, because I think being human, like, you don't need the answers to everything. Sometimes you just need and want different things, and that's okay. Like I said, I think this theory is kind of comforting, because it is just saying, like, take what you need, give yourself what feels good right now, and that will at some point change, and you can pick other things. Do you know what I mean? You don't have to pick two forever and stick with them. You can take what you need in this chapter, and then if at some point you want to park one of the other ones and take a different one, then do it. Like, the point is to give yourself what you need and what's going to make you feel good and benefit you. And I think that's actually, I don't know, something quite sweet about the theory. And that, like, don't expect yourself to have the capacity to do all three. Don't put the pressure on yourself to be, hitting your marks in all of the areas. Give yourself the grace to let one give. You're giving a lot of energy to other things, and you're prioritizing other things, and something's going to give, and that's okay. And it's very human. And, that's something that I just like about it. I think it's like pushing the idea that, like, lower your expectations. You only have so much energy. You actually do have a capacity. And it's easy to forget that, and it's easy, I think, for us all to push ourselves to, you know, do everything all the time, all at once, and, make sure that we're not letting any area fall behind, and that is exhausting, and that is gonna burn you out. I recently did a whole episode on burnout and, like, preventing it, and, this in some ways kind of an extension of that episode. But I think a lot of us have a very high expectation for ourselves, and we expect ourselves to be able to have a good social life and be looking after ourselves and sleeping and be rested and not be tired, but also working all the fucking time. And when you say it out loud, you're like, duh, like, of course that's like something's gonna have to give, because that doesn't, like, add up. You can't necessarily do all those things at once. I do have some thoughts on how you possibly, like, the only way that I've ever found that, you know, to actually be able to balance these things. I will talk about that in a minute. But yeah, I don't know. I just think we all do have these expectations that we should be able to do everything at once. And I think this theory is just quite sweet in the way that it's like, pick two, and, like, you can't fucking do the other one. Like, give yourself a break. I don't know. It's like, it's so realistic, and it reminded me that, like, I do have a capacity, and that's okay. Just to give myself what I actually need in the moment and not try and do everything. I think that's quite cute. For example, if you're starting a new job right now, it would make sense in this phase of your life to prioritize success, work, and sleep, and maybe park the social life for a brief period, because you're starting a new job and that's quite intense and tiring, and you want to be good at it and settle in and blah, 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 adjust accordingly. And that makes sense that maybe you wouldn't see your friends so much. However, if you were, like, I don't know, going through something, like, not feeling good mentally, just feeling really down and, like, shit, it might be more beneficial for you to get out the house and see your friends, and make sure you're looking after yourself and sleeping. And, you know, let work just kind of tick by, be like business as usual. Don't put like excess energy into meeting new goals and stuff, and just do the bare minimum at work for a bit. Do you know what I mean? And like get yourself back on your feet and feeling good. And then you can adjust accordingly again. Do you know what I mean? You know, just some examples of how I think you pick and choose what you need is like, look at the phase that you're in your life right now and what will actually make you feel good. Because that's another thing is like, I think it's quite easy if, say, a few people have asked you to go out and do things social wise, like, you know, you've got quite a few plans on and quite a few things organized, but you don't have that much social energy because you've been working a lot and you've been busy and doing other things. It's okay if that's not something that really inspires you and excites you right now. If the thought of going out to different events and parties and I don't know, I don't fucking do any of that. But, you know, going out for dinners and stuff doesn't really like tickle your pickle right now, that's fine, you know, and maybe just say no to things for a little bit or say no more often. You know, you do have to kind of be a bit selfish with your energy and actually give yourself what you need in that moment and remind yourself that it's okay to say no. Like saying no is it's such a power, like, you know, that's something I have to remind myself fairly frequently is like the word no is great. Like, I need to be saying that more because it's so easy to feel like, fuck, that was nice of them to invite me, and oh, this was nice, and oh, I can't. You're allowed to say no. Like, it doesn't make you a bitch, you know? There's a difference. I saw something on Instagram the other day, which I really liked, and it was like, this girl said, she was like, I'm a good person, not a nice person. And, this might not be relevant to what I'm talking about, but she was saying that I am a good person. I do, you know, I do the right thing. I'm morally, like, I am a morally sound person. But I'm not just going to be nice for the sake of being nice. Like, there's a difference between being a good person and being someone who's, like, nice all the time, you know? Not that saying no isn't nice, but, like, I don't know, sometimes it's good to, like, remind yourself you don't need to try and be, like, super easily digestible by everyone all the time. You can say no and you can meet your own needs and actually live your life in the way that you want. You know, it's so easy to forget that and forget that you actually have control and autonomy over your life, and you should, you know, exercise that right and like fucking do what you want. And you know, you is as long as you're being a good person, you don't have to be like overly nice and just do things for the sake of them all the time. I don't know, just like something I saw that again was a nice reminder. But back to what we're talking about. You know, I recently had a week where I was dog sitting. Now, I was looking after a puppy, and because I knew that I was going to be doing that, and I was going to be waking up fairly early, and you know, my priority had to be looking after this puppy and, you know, feeding it, walking it, blah, blah, blah. I was like, for this week, I'm probably just going to work and be with this puppy. Like, my social life can fuck off this week because it's just going to complicate it. I'm busy doing something, you know. And I had that week where I was just like working and revolving my life around looking after this puppy. And I think I really enjoyed it because it made my life feel really simple for a week where, you know, I wasn't trying to do too much. I wasn't putting too much on my plate because I couldn't. I had something I needed to be doing. So I had to, you know, had to just do that. And the way that it just naturally simplified my life, because the way that I've just knocked out any idea of socializing, it felt so much calmer, and like I wasn't trying to do a million things at once. And I think the way that that made me feel really supports this fucking theory that like when you actually prioritize an appropriate amount of things for yourself, like your standards and your expectations aren't ridiculously high. You know, I wasn't thinking, okay, I'm gonna be rested enough and look after this puppy and work and see my friends, blah, blah, blah. No, I was like, let's fucking like dial it down to what I need to be doing and keep it basic this week because I know I'll probably be a bit tired and like I don't fucking want to do anything else. You know, it's showing that like when you actually acknowledge your capacity and like have an appropriate amount of priorities, you actually feel a lot better. You know, that kind of week um started making me think about all of this because I was like, oh my God, like I feel so peaceful because I'm like, I'm getting what I need to get done, but I'm not trying to like burn the excess energy. I'm like meeting myself where I am and with how much energy I have. And I think I remember thinking like, this is something I kind of just want to carry on doing in my life, even when I'm not puppy sitting. Do you know what I mean? I want to actually simplify shit for myself. Like, if I want to just focus on socializing and sleeping at the moment, that's fine. Obviously, I have to work, but like, I can dial that down to the bare minimum if I want to, and like vice versa. If I want to, work more and just sleep more, then that's fine. I think, I don't know. I loved the simplicity and the lower expectations of myself, and that I've never felt less burnt out in my life trying to actually just simplify the fuck out of what I was putting on my plate. And like, I don't need to be puppy sitting in order to simplify my life down a little bit. I can carry that out regardless. I can just do what I actually want. Do you know what I mean? This is what I mean, that it's so easy to forget that, like, you actually should be living your life in a way that you enjoy and that makes you feel good. And, I was doing that and it felt great. And then, there's this kind of expectation of like, when I'm not doing that, I'm going to get back to being busy and having loads on my plate. But like, I don't need to do that. I can actually do what I want. Do you know what I mean? So I just think that's a good example of like, obviously sometimes there's going to be a lot on your plate that you can't control, and there's going to be phases that are very busy and overwhelming and do burn you out, and you can't always do anything about it. It depends what the things on your plate are. Sometimes they're very self-inflicted, which is usually my problem. Usually I put too many things on my plate and I stress myself out. So, like I was saying, the only way that I've ever found around this, and like the only technique that I have found that works, that allows you to balance things a little bit more evenly rather than being 0 to 100. The only thing that I personally see working, or that I've seen work for myself, is scheduling and discipline, to ensure that you're not fully abandoning any of the key areas that you don't want to fully put to the side completely, but you're also not like knocking the scales too hard in another direction. You're kind of giving everything a little bit of your energy. The only way that I've found that is possible is through discipline and scheduling and planning and being organized and not just winging it. For example, if I plan out in advance, like maybe a week or two or whatever, how far ahead you plan your life, if I plan in advance, for example, my social plans, I don't, I think we all kind of have to do that when we become adults, as you can't really be like, hey, you're free today. No one's fucking free today. Do you know what I mean? No one's ever free today. Everyone needs notice. But if you plan your social shit a bit in advance, then you can, I will look at my calendar, and because I'll know my social plans, I will also know then to factor in certain days where I'll want to stay in, or I'll want to do nothing, or I'll want to sleep early, or I want to have like a nice pamper evening. I will factor that in because I know how much energy I'm giving to my social life, and I will know if someone's like, hey, do you want to go for dinner or something, and I look at my calendar, I'm already going out for 2 social things that week, maybe move it to a different week because I know my limits. Do you know what I mean? I think you have to know your limits and yourself. It's about knowing yourself, and that takes experimentation, of course, but learning your limits and kind of setting boundaries with yourself and respecting them. I'm respecting my boundaries by saying maybe we could do that the week after. When, yeah, sure, I have an evening I could fit that in, but I won't have the energy. I'll be spreading myself too thin, social energy wise, if I book in too many things, and then that's when your sleep suffers. You start to feel tired and shit, and you're dragging yourself around doing the shit that you've said that you're gonna do, and you're like a zombie at work, and like you're sat at dinner in silence because you're fucking tired, and like you just feel kind of shit. And like that's something that I've grown out of finding appealing. Do you know what I mean? I think that also may be part of growing up and becoming more adult. I feel fucking stupid saying that because I feel like I'm not an adult, but I am an adult. Growing up, I think you find the thought of a life that's a little bit more balanced out and a little bit more to your needs and a little bit more relaxed. You find that a lot more appealing. I don't think the thought of being social 24/7 and being tired and feeling hungover or feeling like that doesn't appeal to me. I'd much rather go to fucking bed. Do you know what I mean? Maybe this is just me being like literal grandma, but I do think, when you grow up, I think you start to learn what you actually need and what actually makes you feel good, and you kind of learn your limits, and you're like, okay, that was too much. I feel burnt out from that, or I don't want to work a job that's that many hours. That didn't work for me. It took over my life. Or I don't like socializing all the time. Like, I actually feel better, um, staying at home sometimes. Maybe you realize, actually, I'm a bit of a homebody. I've always been, you know, acting in a more extroverted way, but maybe that's not actually been true to me. And maybe, you kind of learn yourself and what actually makes you feel good. And then I think you can start to honor that and have boundaries around that and actually give yourself the kind of life that you actually enjoy. Do you know what I mean? I don't think you can really do that until you hit, I guess, a certain level of maturity where you're like, that doesn't appeal to me. I kind of would rather do what actually makes me feel good and enjoy my life and take it at a pace that I'm comfortable with. Because that's going to be obviously different for everyone, but like, it's very important to go at a pace that you enjoy, because life is there to enjoy. Life is quite short. You don't want to be run off your feet doing shit that doesn't feel good to you all the time, you know? And yeah, I think scheduling and having discipline with it, that I mean honoring your boundaries, that takes discipline sometimes. And having discipline in the way of actually knowing, like I said, knowing your limits. If someone's like, "Oh, do you want to go out for drinks tonight?" and you're like, "Fuck, like I know I need to sleep early because I know I've got shit to do in the morning and I know blah blah blah." Discipline, say no. Do you know what I mean? Remember how amazing that word is? Say no. You know, actually respect what you know that you need to do. Do you know what I mean? Um, spontaneity is fun. I'm not saying overly schedule and plan to the point where you can't go out and have fun. If one of your friends is like, "Do you want to go out for a drink?" and you're free and you think, actually, that would be really fucking nice, go. That's not what I mean. Live your life. Do you know what I mean? Have fun. I love sometimes that's so fun. I love spontaneity. It sounds like I fucking hate it, but I do. It is so fun. I just mean having some level of like order to your life and some sort of schedule or system or something, I think is the only way you can actually ensure that you're getting a little bit of everything. If you wing it, I think the balance will be fucked. I think you'll think, I can just wing it and like do a little bit of everything. You probably can't. I mean, you might be able to, I fucking can't. If I wing it, the balance is skewed within like a week because I will do something too much. I will either hibernate too much by myself and sleeping and looking after myself and I won't see a soul. Or I will work too much and I'll be too tired, or like I will burn myself out. I need to look at a calendar and actively plan it in a way where I'm like, okay, I'm seeing friends. I've also got time alone. I also know I'm going to sleep. Like it's just the only way that I've noticed is scheduling and discipline. If you have any other ideas, I would actually love to know them. So do comment them if you have any kind of things that you've found that actually help you with this. I do think another huge one is listening to your body, listening to how you actually feel. Checking in with yourself for signs of fatigue and burnout, as they are often signals that you're misplacing your energy. That you're putting maybe energy right now into an area of your life that's kind of got some friction. It's not what you want to be doing. It's not what you need to be doing. Maybe you don't actually have the energy to be doing that. Maybe you're pushing yourself too much. I think that's a big one, is being on the same page as yourself, having that kind of relationship with yourself where you can have like little moments of silence to listen to yourself and just be like, how am I feeling? Because sometimes you'll, go, go, go. And then you have a moment and you're like, how am I feeling? And you're like, oh my God, I'm doing way too much. I am feeling like shit. And I didn't realize because I haven't sat still. Having moments to actually just check in and be like, am I, happy with what I'm doing right now? Is there anything I need to change? Like I said, are you misplacing your energy? Do you need to actually maybe cancel a couple of plans this week? Maybe if you've overbooked yourself, are you feeling spread too thin? Maybe you're picking up extra shifts at work. Maybe you need to drop one of them. Sometimes you can't. Like, I get it. Sometimes you need the money. It very much depends. But like I said, sometimes it is self-inflicted and sometimes you're just pushing yourself too hard. And stress is not good for you. So if you can, and there's areas where you could actually dial it back and look after yourself a bit more and make sure you're giving yourself what you actually need and meeting your needs rather than trying to be a robot who does everything all the time, which we all seem to think that we can do, which we always get burnt out and realize we couldn't do it. It's like a cycle. No, then just Maybe sometimes there's some areas you could just dial it back. Maybe you're just pushing yourself too much. Maybe you just need a few early nights right now. Maybe that's way more important and gonna make you feel so much better and actually make you way more productive than pushing yourself at work, you know? Yeah, I don't know. Just found this theory really, really interesting. Like I said, I would love to know any thoughts that anyone has, and I think if anything, if you can take anything from it, it's a reminder that you have a capacity, you only have so much energy, and don't expect yourself to be able to go through life hitting every single area perfectly. Sometimes things are going to give, something's always going to give. And maybe we do live in cycles, maybe we do fluctuate with our priorities and what we need, and maybe that's okay. Do you know what I mean? I think that's okay, and I think it's so human. So yeah, let me know your thoughts. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Um, Thank you for watching, or thank you for listening if you're on Spotify. And I will talk to you next Tuesday.